Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us today. Today's CITL launch is about the 7 habits of highly effective teachers. And we have very interesting panel today. And our moderator will be Dr. Mai Zaki from the Arabic and Translation Department. Dr. Mai Zaki is an associate professor at the Department of Arabic and Translation Studies. Her PhD degree is in linguistics, but she teaches a range of courses, including linguistics, translation, Arabic as a foreign language, and Arabic heritage. Her research interests include corpus linguistics, translation studies, stylistics, and digital humanities. Her teaching style embraces technology, of course, and rests on the principle of know your students. So with no further ado, the floor is yours, Dr. Zaki. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Walid, and welcome everyone to our panel today. Okay, so everyone wants to know what are the 7 habits of highly effective teachers. So hopefully today we'll get to know. Maybe there are more than 7, we'll see. All right, so I would like to welcome all the panelists today from SBA and from engineering. We have Dr. Amani, Dr. Kazi, and Dr. Ilker from SBA. So first of all, just to introduce ourselves, can we please ask you each one to introduce themselves to the audience? Thank you. Who wants to start? Ladies first. Amani.
Okay. Thank you, Mai, for the introduction. Well, my name is Amani Al-Othman. I'm an associate professor of chemical engineering. I joined AOS in 2013, coming from Canada. Since then, I taught several courses at AOS. First year, second year, third year, fourth year, master's, and PhD. I also created several courses at AOS for the program, either for the chemical engineering or the PhD in materials engineering. And here I am. I'm happy to participate in this session today. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And you got the award for teaching in what year?
In 2019.
Oh, also, I think you're the most recent one. Yeah. All right. Great. Okay. Dr. Ilker, do you want to go ahead?
Sure. My name is Ilker, and I am from the School of Business Administration, and I'm in the economics department. Just one, point of clarification. Recently, I installed bracelets. Not me, but the dentist installed bracelets on my teeth. So at this age, it's kind of very strange to speak with this thing in your mouth. So sorry about sometimes there are some S or some similar sounds coming out of my mouth without any mic control. So sorry about that thing, that part.
No problem.
So I joined AUS in 2009, and since then, as my colleague, I pretty much taught almost all the courses in the economics department. Since there was a question about the courses that we taught, I just counted. There are 15 of them, so I don't think that I should count them. They're all, MBA level, master level, and undergraduate level. Other than that, I continue with my research in the area of economic development and income inequality and some other, social issues. And I think that's all for now about myself.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Kazi.
Thanks, Mai. Well, first off, I'm very happy to be here. It's an honor to be with people such as Dr. Ilker, you and Amani and AUS. So I came here in 2010, so my 11th year. Same as Dr. Amani, I came from Canada after finishing my PhD there. I'm an associate professor in civil engineering. And I was just listening to Dr. Ilker, 15 courses, oh my God. I haven't done so much. I have taught 7 courses, both graduate and undergraduate levels, but I normally teach the 300 and the 400 level courses and the graduate course. I'll have I'm teaching another new course in fall from the graduate course as well. One of my courses, we have a minor. I don't know if a lot of people know about that, is the environment and water engineering minor that we have that is housed in civil engineering. And I teach one of those courses. So it's a multidisciplinary course. We get students from civil engineering, of course, but chemical engineering, environmental sciences, biology, mechanical engineers. So it's more broadly on the water quality and treatment, so more sustainable courses. Most of my courses are related to environment. That's my specialty. And my research is on water, wastewater treatment, solid waste management, and sustainable practices in those lines. Okay.
All right, thank you very much. So we have a very wide range of courses here. They all look very different or sound very different from each other. But that doesn't mean that the teaching styles need to be different, right? I mean, we could have all similarities in our teaching styles. So, which brings me to the question about your teaching style. Just generally, before we get into the details, how would you describe your teaching style? You know, when you apply for jobs and you get this thing that tells you, write something about your philosophy, your teaching philosophy. What are the broad lines there? Dr. Amani?
Yes, thank you, Mai. I think the major thing that I would describe my teaching style with is interactive. I would like to bring the students on board always. I always target to engage the students, not only in the learning process, but also sometimes in simple decision-making process. For example, even if we want to decide about a quiz, just a simple quiz to gauge their knowledge on a certain topic, I would tell them, when do you want the quiz to be? And then this makes them actually feel that they are part of the learning, the decision-making as well. This also enhances their confidence. I always talk to them by name, and when we used to have face-to-face lessons, I like this eyeball to eyeball contact because it brings out the best in them. I would address the question directly to each one of them. Another thing is I used to focus on how to group them, how to solve, because I teach in the College of Engineering. So one thing that we do as engineers is that we work in teams. We usually work on projects, and it's multidisciplinary. So it's very important to prepare them for the working environment, how to enhance this skill, the problem-solving method. You know, in books, we cannot really teach them everything, but what we can enhance or sharpen is their skill, how to solve the problem. So working in teams was, in my opinion, very beneficial for solving problems effectively. And it was positively reflected on their confidence, how to tackle new problems. So working in teams, active learning, and actually I'm planning to talk today about students' response system, the use of technology. This is something very important as well.
Yes, great. I think we could all agree that this kind of interaction with the students and giving them the opportunity to decide things, like you said, when do you want this course, or how many, I don't know if you're going to go as far as how many questions do you want in the quiz, but that's something to think about. All right. So, so Dr. Ilker, do you want to share with us just the broad description of your teaching style?
All right. Now, first of all, there are some very strong statements about, when you guys try to describe us as effective teachers. I have no such claim in the first place. I think, students can be judge of that thing, but as I said, personally, I don't have anything like that in my mind. But in general, you asked before first, actually, how I would introduce my teaching, let's say in a job interview or to someone else. So mainly my understanding, my job is to take the complicated, concepts and make it simple for student access, so that I should explain, everything in a way that students can understand, and then, they can also place in their lives. That's my role or job. That's how I take it. But other than that, how I actually lecture, usually I use similar techniques to my colleague. I try to be, interactive as much as I can during the lectures. I try to be accessible for students. As my colleague, suggested, not only for quiz, but I do this at the beginning of the semester. I'm sure almost, some of you guys follow this similar approach. I introduced them my syllabus, then I gave them chance. First, I explained my expectations and, what we are going to do during the semester, in that particular course. And then I gave them chance to contribute. Okay, what are the things that you don't like about this syllabus? What are the, concerns you have? Would you like to change certain things in this syllabus? And this is the time, let me tell you, let me know, about, your thoughts so that we can modify certain things, including, let's say that exam dates, certain lecture styles, and I explain them actually briefly how we are going to, have the lectures. And I try to make them also contribute into that, building the lectures, and then we move on. And for the single lectures, I like to ask questions as much as I can, because it's really important, to encourage student participation, which is not easy all the times, or no matter what you do, sometimes it doesn't work on certain students, unfortunately, but, you just try your best. So in general, I think that's, how I can describe my briefly lecture style.
Right. Yeah. I like that so much, that the fact that you actually ask students about the syllabus, although that gives them the opportunity to complain about everything they can, but they actually sometimes come up with good ideas as well. And you want the students to be comfortable with what
they do. You would be amazed. They do.
Yeah. Right. Okay, Dr. Kazi, how about you?
Well, it's hard to come after these two faculties, and I think I totally agree. The interaction with students is very, very important, and to listen to them, to have empathy, and to put yourself in their shoes is very important. We all know what AUS stands for, right? It's always under stress, and I tell my students, yes, we know that. We faculties actually know that, and we're also stressed, so you should know that as well. But at the end of the day, when we set quizzes or when we set deadlines, I'm always open to changing a little bit. It doesn't harm to give them a few more hours, right? I know there are deadlines, but when you do that, I think the students actually feel that, yes, you feel for them as well. And that is very important. At least for me, it's very important. And the interaction that I actually have, I don't have set office hours, because I tell them I'm open every time you want. So all you have to do is text me, send me a message, and if I'm free, I'll be there for you. So I actually have a separate phone number of a WhatsApp group that I have given to my students. So I have my personal WhatsApp, do not go there, but I have a second one where I interact with them. Like yesterday, I tried to tell them, don't send me messages when I'm sleeping, but I get messages at 12 o'clock, but they know that I will not reply then, but I will reply to them as soon as possible. And they know that, right? And I have got so many messages all the time. I think that they know that I am approachable, and then they can tell me their problems, or if they want to learn more. That's very important, because I'm sure all of us can teach, right? Teaching, that's not why we probably got this award. I think it's something that probably we did a little bit extra that put us in this position. I'm sure all our faculties are excellent teachers. So what else did we do? And I think one of the questions that you had was about how the engineering or College of Engineering or business, the award is given. Yeah. So I was lucky enough, I'll mention that. Maybe you were going to ask me that anyways. Yeah, I'll mention that because I've been lucky. I've been in the committee for, I guess, 4 times. So last 3 years I've been there. And I was there when Dr. Amani won hers as well. I was the chair. So what I have seen is that there are these tiny little things that some other faculties do that actually push them to get the award. And in engineering, we actually have set guidelines. So when we sit in a committee, I don't know about the other colleges and schools, but we have point system, and this is very well taken care of by the committee. And most of the time we find that the two competitors or the submissions are very, very close. And it becomes very difficult for whoever is in the committee to decide. And those are the things that we're looking into. So technology use. For the last 2 years, yes, everyone's using technology. But if you go back 4 years or 5 years, so I won in 2017. And at that time, we were just coming to the use of technology and group projects or more interaction, active learning. I used to do that before, right? So I think those are the things that push the students, and that's my take on teaching, is to be there for them, to try and make them understand as simply as possible. I'm lucky in the sense that I teach about environment. And so I think the students can relate to those very, very easily. And I tell them, like, just think about it and to give them some time to think. Because in engineering, sometimes our syllabuses are so large that we have to teach, and finish our syllabus. But we don't give them time to think, right? To think how to do the problem and what they can do, or even and I'm sure everyone's seen this. You do a problem in class and you change A to B and the students cannot do it. It's just because they have been taught to think about what we did in class and that's it. And you change something here and there, and then everything falls apart, right? And I think to give them the time to think about this, to do critical thinking, that's very important. And I like to do that. So even if I cannot do it in my class, I said, you know what? I always meet them on Google Meet, because I think it's much easier to meet face-to-face, especially during this time. We do not have office hours per se, but to meet them, and I tell them, you have to turn on your webcam. Because, seeing me and me seeing them, it makes a big difference.
And do they?
They do, yes. So at least in the meetings, I have told them you have to. In the classes, I actually go into Google Meet as well. So on Collaborate, I do my lectures, but on Google Meet, they're there. And some of the students are there. And what I have heard, those who want to interact, they feel better that they can actually see me talking. Sometimes we use our hands and facial expressions to say something, which was okay face-to-face. But nowadays with these electronic media, I don't know. And another thing what I found is just try to make the class more fun. It's not always teaching and no fun. So give them stories, movies or something, just to, release the stress. And then I think it's better instead of just teaching continuously for 50 minutes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. This is very important, especially now we're coming towards the end of the semester. So the stressful weeks, the assignments, the quizzes, the finals are coming soon. Everyone is stressed. And I agree, this idea of approachability of the professor is really important. It's even more important now with this online mode that we're in. But I know that a lot of people are still struggling with students just opening their cameras. It's a real struggle. And sometimes you just need to give them a little bit of a nudge, a bonus. Just mention the word bonus. I'm going to give you a bonus point if you open your cameras, and they will all do. But yeah, and having fun in class, that's really, really important. Speaking of fun, just today, because I teach MW, so today was the first class in Ramadan. So I told them, okay, let's have fun. We need Ramadan decorations around us. Bring your lanterns and things. And they did, actually, and they liked it. And it relieved some of the stress that they had from this time of the semester. Right. So, Kazi, you mentioned something important about the way that you, in your college, choose these awards. I was wondering what happens in SBA. Is it the same thing?
Okay, so I actually thought about that, question. To be honest, I do not have an answer because I never served in that committee. Yeah. What they requested from me, I remember. By the way, actually, I had 2 awards at SBA, one for undergraduate teaching, one for graduate teaching. But in either case, I really do not know how the committee made the decision. But all I know is I think students are showing me as the, nominee for this award. And then they ask all my teaching materials, course portfolios. I think they look at the student evaluations. I do not know whether they talk to students or not. So then they, reveal the results. So I do not know exact process, to be honest.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Well, yeah, different colleges, maybe they have different systems, but I think in principle, they all look at the same main components in the course portfolio and the evaluations and maybe the number of different courses that you've taught, etc. Okay, so I just wanted to ask also one question before we get into the details of these habits and teaching and techniques. Just going back to your earlier years as a teacher, first of all, did you always wanted to teach, or did you know that you want, this is the thing that you want to do, you want to teach at this level? And second, how did your teaching style differ from, like, maybe we're all young here, so let's say 10 years ago. That's it. I'm not going any further. 10 years ago and now, what has changed, do you think? Amani, do you want to start?
You always start with me, which I would be. I'm so glad to start this discussion. Anyway, well, I started my academic career in 2013 as well. So I always call AOS home, because when I started here, I was a fresh graduate coming. I just finished my PhD, and here I am running a real classroom, and I have a lot of bright students out there, and I need to address all their questions, and I need to address them really well, because they are so intelligent and they are there to ask lots of these really deep questions. So after a couple of years, I engaged at the Faculty Development Center, and I was in touch also with where I met lots of faculty. So I learned a lot from them. It was a course for about 1 year. It has enhanced a lot the methods of my teaching by adding a very nice flavor, which is the extensive use of technology. And I get to know how to use a student's response system. And part of the project that I actually prepared for that class, I was very passionate about that class, as if I was, it reminded me of the old days of being a student. And I remember that I conducted these surveys, because part of what we do as teachers, or like once you finish your PhD, this means that you are in research as well. So we like to observe in addition to teaching. And what our students do not know is that we also study them, we observe them. And we observe what are the techniques and how's their response to their techniques. So I conducted these surveys using student response system, and they were received really well by the students. I used them for research. I practiced lots of things in the classroom, and then I used the students' response system to gauge the interest and how, or to measure the success rate of these practices. So this was the start, and after that I started to run quizzes and interactive sessions using the students' response system. So I would say that that course was a point of reflection in my teaching methods.
Yeah, great. I mean, we are all teachers, but we are learning all the time, yes. And we should,
exactly.
As you say. Right. Thank you very much. So, Dr. Ilker, what are your thoughts on that?
All right. So my answer actually is kind of need to be explained, because what I'm going to tell you is this is my 12 plus 4, 16th year in teaching. So if I tell you that it did not change my style of teaching in teaching, it did not change much, then you can question, haven't you learned anything over this time? Here's what I can say. Look, when I go back to my graduate study time, I was teaching as a graduate assistant. I was studying with scholarship, and usually it was tough for graduate students to actually teach the entire course by yourself. But for somehow it felt very natural to me. To be honest, I never felt nervous in front of 100 students. It was, as I said, some people can run fast. Some people can paint beautiful paintings. People have different things, and I think this is my thing. I can easily relate, connect to people. So when I went in the classroom, it felt very natural. And I started making jokes, explaining, the topics. And I remember at the end of the semester, the department head called me into his office. I thought I may be, in some kind of trouble. He said that we are going to cut your scholarship. I was scared really first, but he said, don't worry, because we would like to offer you a job here, he said, as an instructor until you finish your degree. So they like my teaching. And actually it was a good deal for me because I start getting 3 times more than my, old stipend. What I can say actually over the time, what has changed for me, the experience. You actually learn better, especially when you teach in a certain subject. I'm teaching in economics. You have a better idea, what are the things that students can easily understand? What are the parts they are having harder time to understand? So that you can adjust, your explanations, your examples. You can allocate different amount of times on different parts. So I think that's what has changed for me pretty much. But as a style, to be honest, I don't think that, there were many changes in a way that I give or deliver my lectures.
Yeah. Okay,
and more details, I think I will provide in the coming parts.
Yeah, well, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, but I mean, I guess teaching awards, okay, of course it has to do with your teaching techniques and stuff, but I guess part of it will have to do with just personalities, really, because you cannot separate the two. So one component of that will have to be your own personality. Right. So, okay, we'll get back to the details of what makes your teaching style unique, but we're gonna hear from Kazi first. What do you think, Kazi? 10 years ago, was it different or the same?
Yeah, well, let's start from the beginning. So your question was, did we always want to teach?
Yeah.
My case, definitely a yes. My grandparents were teachers, my parents were teachers, here I am, my wife's a teacher. So I guess this teaching is running in the family. Yeah. And I looked at it. So I have lived on a university campus. Other than 7 years of my life, it's been on a university campus. So even when I was at UBC doing my graduate studies, I was in the campus. So I think being in that area and being in that environment probably motivated me. And I've always wanted to teach. So I started teaching, tuition when I was doing my O-levels. So I used to teach school students. Then when I did my A-levels, I was teaching O-level students. So it was a progress. And I guess it stuck with me, and I've always loved to teach. Within the last 10 years, I think in terms of changing, I have come to, I guess, acknowledge more from the students' perspective. My undergraduates was very, very rigorous. It's got tough. But what I learned from them is I don't want my students to go through some of the hell that I have gone through. And I think that's very important. And I tell them when they complain, they complain, oh, we had 4 quizzes in 1 week. I tell them we had 3 quizzes in 1 day with a midterm in between. So don't complain to me there. I know it's stressful. I realize that. But I think going on my past, being a student, knowing what I feel and putting myself in their shoes, that helps a lot as to how I teach. Now, how have I changed my lecture in 10 years? I think it's more easier, and I think Dr. Ilker said that as well, is knowing the students, what their problems are. Once you teach a course over and over again, you know where the trouble spots are. And to try and, so what I do is every time I see a problem, I tell them, you know what? These are where your students are going to make mistakes. I know that, whether it's in a unit change, or whether it's a square that they have forgotten, and I warn them that don't make these silly mistakes. And I think those are the little things that the students appreciate, right? So over the time, yes, use of technology, and it has become a part of our lives nowadays. And another thing, I remember last year when we were thinking that we're going to go into this online mode of teaching, I actually started practicing with them a week or 2 before the US had even mentioned. So I was with them, training with them online, trying new different things, all the quizzes and lectures. They were stressed. The students were telling us, we are stressed, we do not know what to do. So I sat with them separate time after meetings and saying, you know what, this is what you should do, try. During exam, we always get emails from the administration, please practice with your students and don't wait for the last moment. I think that's very important to do that. And that's how I have changed. So yes, at the beginning, I think I was more strict at the beginning. Now I do feel for the students more. I think that has changed as we have grown. Maybe my expectations have gone down a little bit. I don't know. But coming from North America, you know, it's one way of teaching. And the first and the second year, I remember I was trying to focus, my expectations was similar, that you give them something and they're going to learn on their own. But there are cultural differences, right? And we have to accept that. So my thinking has been, okay, now I have to give them more time, more probably understanding what, if they cannot understand, let me give them more time to in a meeting or one-to-one, which is very different from a lot of the North American universities, because there it's more, the faculty will tell you, these are the things, then you have to do a lot of learning on your own. Yeah. So just because we were there doesn't mean that students from rest of the world are going to follow the same way, right? I'm not saying which is good or which is bad, but if I'm teaching here, this is the way I have to teach. If I'm in North America, that's the way I have to teach. So that way, I think changing your way of teaching is also very, very important.
Yeah, so it's an adaptable process, right? You adapt and you change and you develop your teaching. It's not a static thing, right? And as you all said, we all learn from experience as well. That's very important, right? So if you put yourself in your students' shoes, what do you think is the number one thing the student would say about your teaching style, that we like this professor because of that? What is the one element that you think really draws the students to you? Anyone who wants to answer. I don't want to pressure Amani because she feels stressed now.
I can answer this one.
I did my share.
Okay, go ahead, Dr.
Again, look, this is, becoming actually risky for me. I'm not claiming anything, but at least what I know from the students actually feedback in evaluation forms, they always write the same thing over and over and over again. I think they love it. The examples that I provided, to explain the concepts in the classroom, they always say that with these examples, we can relate what we learn to real life cases. And actually, I spend time on this, thing. It's not just, a natural thing. I actually, before each class, I search for, very up-to-date examples, specifically about the topics that I'm explaining. And then the ones that students can easily recognize, all right, because I try to look at the news. As Kazi, I'm actually very lucky, maybe even luckier than, Kazi's case, because if you listen to news today, half of it like about economic issues, the 1/3 is environmental issues, and the remaining part is, daily stuff. So I think we are lucky in that sense. So I think one thing they would actually tell me about is, my examples, how actually they are helpful and related to, what they learn.
Yeah, great. That's very good. Who wants to go next?
I'll go, but let Dr. Amani wait this time.
Yeah.
Well, what do the students like about me? Well, there are a lot of things that hate about me. I know that much. But I'll talk about the positives here. I think most of the time what they have written is the approach that I normally take and how I try to make things simpler, even complicated stuff, trying to make them think. That's what I think they like about me, is the way I'm trying to make things much easier than maybe it is, and trying to poke some fun into those serious business of the either explanation or design. It's, the classroom has to be fun to enjoy. Otherwise, it gets too boring to talk 50 minutes on a specific topic. And that's what I have seen over and over again. They said, oh, this is how his method of teaching is. And I think I appreciate the feedback. And as Dr. Ilker said, I'll talk about feedback later on as well.
Okay. All right, we're going to have a side issue on feedback, students' feedback. Now let's hear from Dr. Amani.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, dear colleagues, because you guys gave me so many ideas right now. As Dr. Kazi mentioned, I hope that they say good things about us, but it's I think based on what I have seen in the comments, in the feedback, I can relate this to something tangible actually. In chemical processes in general, we have something that we call the energy barrier. It is something that you need to overcome so that you can start the process. I think what students like in the teacher's personality is that this person lowers the barrier in between the student and the teacher. So they can ask questions freely, they can interact, they can always give their feedback, they can criticize the content of the let us say of delivery or the method of delivery. They can speak their mind, and actually their feedback is so important, because if we look at it subjectively, then we can take it to improve. So yes, I know that we are going to talk about students' comments, but their interaction is very important, and lowering the barrier in between the teacher and the student is also important.
Yeah, definitely. Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so before we get to students' comments, which is going to be an interesting topic, and students' feedback, going back to your individual teaching techniques and styles, what works all the time? That's maybe everyone is asking that question. What is the one thing that you do that works all the time with all types of students? I mean, different students have different learning styles as well. But maybe there are universals that we should all follow. And on the other hand, what doesn't work? What did you find that, no, we tried it once and it doesn't really work? And again, anyone who wants to jump in, please go ahead.
I'm going to jump in because otherwise they're going to say all my answers. It's easier to go first sometimes.
You see, students should follow that. They should do that in the classes when we ask them the question.
It is a good technique, yes.
So one thing I have found that students do not like is if you're very, very strict. If you do not listen to them, if they want a few hours extension and say, no, this is the deadline I have given, you have to do it. The timing is this. I think they do not like that. And that's one complaint that I have got if I try to ever do that. But then again, I think it is a balance. You cannot give the students all the opportunities, all what they want, but it's a balance. So you give and take some of them. So like I tell them, you have the capability of changing deadlines or when you want a quiz, but only for one quiz. That's it. The rest of the 4 quizzes, it's on me. I will decide when to give it and how long to give it that way. So I think they know that give and take is there and they appreciate that as well. One thing that works for everyone is for all my students is they know that they can approach me. And to know that they can do that, I think that even the person, we all have students, some of the students who will not attend the class properly, who will not pay attention, and at the end of the day, they will argue with you, right? Why did I give this low marks or anything? But what I have found for the last few years, at least, no one complains that much. They know that I am being honest in my grading and I'm not punishing them for anything else. And they actually agree to that. Even if they do fail my courses, they know that it's probably their fault. And sometimes some of the students have come back and told me, you know what, it's my fault. I agree. I'll repeat the course with you next semester, right? That wasn't there, I think, 10 years ago or 9 years ago, where I was more strict. I think I'm less strict. Doesn't mean that I'm less efficient or I'm not strict. The students do know my exams are sometimes hard because I want them to think critically. I think that's, when I teach, I tell them, you know what, I'm going to do critical thinking. I'm going to ask you to solve problems that you have to think about it. I'm not going to give you straightforward numbers and that you plug it in, not all of them. And one question is always there like that. And I think students appreciate that. Even if they don't get it, they appreciate that.
Yeah, I agree. They really do. I mean, some of them don't, but most of them they do. And yeah, and they would tell you that, oh, we like the type of questions that you ask, and they're not boring, and there's a variety, and blah blah blah. So yeah, but I'm just gonna touch back again on that idea of approachability, because you mentioned, like, for example, you have this WhatsApp number and students can text you. Not all professors would be comfortable with that, which is fine, but approachability can be realized in different ways, right? It doesn't have to be through that way. And I think everyone here agrees that they could be approachable in other ways as well. So if you have any thoughts on that as well, share with us, please. Yes, please, Dr. Ilker.
Okay. Now the question, what works on every student in terms of teaching, I think a different answer. In terms of personal relationship with the students, I have a different answer. My answer for the connecting with students. Here's what works on everyone. Every single day when I go to the classroom or online, when I appear in front of students, I try to have a smiley face. I think it's really important because we are all human beings and we have different problems in our lives all the time. But whatever happens in my personal life, I try to leave it outside the classroom. When I go to the classroom, I'm always smiling, and as you guys suggested, I try to give them that comfort or message. Look, if you would like to talk to me, if you would like to share anything with me, I'm here. We can talk. You can tell me whatever you would like to say. I'm here. I'm ready to listen and then give my feedback. But in terms of teaching, what works on most students, I believe, is the repeating the things over and over again. Sometimes I know it may become boring, but the way that I do this, I think I try to explain the same thing with different words each time. But I do this like at least 5 to 10 times in every single lecture. And I do tell them that I do this intentionally. It's not, I forgot that I explained to you guys a couple of minutes ago, but I do it intentionally because repeating the same thing over and over again, I think one of the most effective ways of, effective way of learning and teaching, I believe. But this is something works on most students. What doesn't work, I really do not know a particular answer for that question. What doesn't work on, almost all students, I really do not know anything in my mind particularly.
Well, that's good. If there's nothing that doesn't work, that's a good answer too, right? Okay. All right. Amani, what do you think?
Yes. Well, I think what always worked with my students is that when I ask them for something, I give them incentive. There's always an incentive to do something. Even when I during the class time or explanation, or if we are solving a difficult problem, so I would address these questions and I ask them who wants to solve that. I would see so many trials, and when I see that there was no answer in the classroom, then I would tell them, can I answer the question now? So they would return back to me and say, no, please give us time. And I usually extend this time until the coming class. So this keeps them busy based on the incentive that if you do this, you will be rewarded. For example, just a simple class bonus. This makes a huge psychological difference on students. So what doesn't work, I think, maybe the lack of incentive. This doesn't work for sure, because if they lose the interest, if there's no passion for learning, then there's no driving force to learn anything new. So if you keep giving them the incentive to pursue the lifelong learning process, give them a reason to come to the classroom, then they would always want to learn.
Yeah. Well, obviously, yes, the incentive is very important for our students. And I actually also found that peer assessment between them works like a charm in the class, especially with group work. If you divide them into groups and you tell them you're going to grade each other's work in the end, and we'll choose the group who wins, that they're very happy to do these things, I think.
Yes,
right.
Absolutely.
Okay, so Maybe one final thing, and obviously we need the audience to interact with us if you have any question at any point. But my final question to you guys before we just talk about anything you want, what do you think you need to improve about your teaching? If there is anything, there's always something, right? Anything you want to improve?
Yeah, there's always something, May.
There is always something.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think one of the things that we need to keep up with is to stay up to date, because the audience right now is different. So if you look at the classroom, maybe in the 50s of the last century, how the teacher is delivering the material, how the students are being seated, and then compare it with an up-to-date or a recent picture for the classroom, where the students, even from KG2 or first grade, they are already in use of tablets, active learning techniques. So we need to be up to date. We have to keep up this momentum so that we can always attract the students and give them a reason to come to the classroom. Otherwise, they're going to say, well, we're going to look for the information outside, maybe on recorded lessons on YouTube. So they have to always have the reason to interact with us as teachers, and we need to create this environment for them.
Yeah, that's very good. That's very well. I agree with that. The students think Google has all the answers now, so
absolutely
we're competing with Google. Okay. Right. What else? Dr. Ilker or Dr. Kazi, any improvements you would like?
First of all, Dr. Amani was right on spot with incentives. Actually, I'm the economist. I should mention this, but you were absolutely right. Without incentives, no one actually, not only students, but nobody would actually behave in a certain way. That's 100% I agree. And that's always, I also use in my, student, assessments, incentives, right? So that they would actually provide you the expected outcome. What I can improve about myself, learn better everything that I'm teaching, become always better and keep you up to date. I 100% also agree with Dr. Amani on that part as well. This is actually something, a good habit, but also a curse. Let me tell you this, because you can never satisfy yourself with the things that you learn. There is always missing. But here's, what I know from my personal experience and what I follow as a person. You guys ask us before this, meeting to send our favorite quote. And I sent something from Albert Einstein, but to be honest, until, I searched on internet, I did not know that Albert Einstein said such thing. If you cannot explain something in a simple way to others, it means that you did not understand. To be honest, that was my philosophy always. If you would like to explain things in a way that others can understand, first, you need to understand yourself, in a very detailed and very clear way so that you can actually explain to others. But as I said, in my own, personal case, sometimes I cannot actually set up the limits. And then sometimes I think, unfortunately, I go, way beyond than the scope of, what I should cover, let's say, in certain areas. But this is related to myself, not in the classroom. I want to learn actually every single detail about something that I teach, and it takes lots of time sometimes, really. Maybe time that I should spend on other things. But I think it is useful and effective, right? If you can understand things better in a detailed way, so that you can explain in a better and simpler way to others. That's one thing that we can improve, I believe. I can improve.
Right. Thank you very much. That's great. Dr. Kazi?
Yeah, so I totally agree. There's always room for improvement. And this is why I think we come to these kind of sessions to learn from others, what they have done, what has worked and what has not worked. I think being stagnant is something that we cannot do. It's impossible, right? We have to, whether it's the teaching materials that we have to change all the time with new technologies coming in, or even something like as simple as these incentives that we have been talking about, right? And we all agree that the students always, the first thing they say is bonus. If you ask them something, will you give me a bonus? If yes, then we will do it. If not, no, we will not do it. I think those are things are very important. my understanding of this stage, I think what I need to do is probably, again, it's difficult when you're teaching some courses which are heavy in the subject and in materials that you have. And sometimes it's difficult, like I teach wastewater treatment and I teach similar stuff in graduate courses. Sometimes you try and overlap, you're trying to give them more information because, I want them to know, but at the end, you have to stop yourself and say, no, there is a boundary between undergraduate and graduate. There's always this overlap that you want to do. But I think I totally agree with Dr. Ilker, is trying to know yourself, what you do, and that is sometimes tough, right? We are not in the industry. Industry sometimes progresses way faster than what we can find in the books. So trying to go and get that information, we don't always get the time. We have to teach, we have to do research, we have to do our other things that you have to do on these committees. So I think trying to stay ahead of the technology is very important, and the students will love you for that, because when you tell them this is what's happening, the practical experience, I think that's important. And always, this is what I need to improve myself, I think, is trying to go out there, learn more what's going on beyond what I'm supposed to teach them. It might not be in the course description because that was probably written 10 years ago, but to keep on updating. And this is why we have the CAF, and every year we want to say, what are we going to improve? And I think that's important, to never be stagnant and to keep mindful of that not being there.
Right. Thank you very much. Very, very nice ideas. I think we've all learned a lot of things today. Our lovely audience, we're open for any comments, any questions you would like to ask our panelists. If you can raise your hand or go ahead and open your mic and ask your question or make your comment. Hi, Narita.
Hi. Let me start. Yeah, I guess while waiting for other people. So let me just start. Thank you again, everybody. Sorry I can't be here. I just finished my class. But I'm sure that it's very, very interesting. I just have a follow-up question. I'm not sure if you guys discussed about this earlier. But the one thing that I know, all of our award winners, the teachers here that we have, if you were to ask a student, you don't even have to ask, you just mention your names. The students already said, oh, we love him, we love her. So you can see the factor that attracts students to all of you, including you, Mai, is the fact that you guys are so approachable and, students can relate to you guys. So my question is actually because some people said that, I remember one of my colleagues actually said this to me, don't be too nice to your students. And seriously, I mean, some people actually said to me, you are too nice to your students. So what can you say about that? Because I know that all of the students say you guys are nice and yet they love you. I mean, you guys did excellent in your class. So I want to know about that. What is your comment about that?
I go first.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you. Thank you, Norita. This is an excellent question, and to begin with, and wherever you go, we just need to be ourselves, right? We cannot really. I mean, the teaching is not something that we do. It's our life, so we cannot really separate our personalities from the as people. From being teachers in the classroom as well. So to begin with, I would always say just I'll be myself. Second, I have to trust my students, because these students, they will graduate, they will be my colleagues, I will be working with them. So I need to extract the best in them. So there's nothing wrong with being nice. It's nice to be nice, right? So this is what I think.
Yeah, that's a good summary. It's nice to be nice. Yeah. Go ahead, Dr. Ilker.
Should I? Yes, I agree with my colleague, Dr. Amani. I think there is also kind of, slight difference between being kind and nice and being open to abuse. So I think the thin line, I think we can all are aware of this and we can all control that, balance between two. I remember Kazi said actually over the time he became more, let's say, kind of not maybe forgiving, but more understanding towards students, right? In my case, I think it's a little bit the opposite way. Let me tell you this. I became more, let's say, rigid on the deadlines over the time, to be honest, because maybe this was me. I was losing the control in certain, places. I remember, you see, because sometimes, unfortunately, some students may try to abuse, if you to be, let's say, too flexible or too, let's say, forgiving on certain things, because other students start criticizing, all right, this is not fair because I submit my, let's say, assignment on time, but you gave that person another day. So this is something I learn all the time. But I think I agree. Being nice is nice. Nothing wrong with it. Being kind, treating everybody with respect. I think these are all, things that we try to do as much as we can. But at the same time, we just need to be, firm on certain areas. Not, and I think we can be firm without being rude to, students or to also our colleagues as well. That's, what I would say.
Yeah, I totally agree, Dr. Ilker. The last point you said, not being rude. I think that's the difference. Yes, you do become strict, but not at the point where they think they're being rude. Because at the end of the day, like they are our students, right? They're like our kids. So if you're not going to be rude to your kids, so why would you be rude to them? So that's something. And I always make fun in my first class when I introduce myself and I ask them, what have you heard about me? If they say, we have heard good things about you, I say they're lying. They got punished. And so that's why they have forced you to come to my class. So now you're going to get punished as well. And if you hear anything bad things about me, that's totally true. So that's my first class. And at the end of the day, and I asked them, so what do you think? They said, no, you're okay. But I said, okay, fine. I'll take that. Like you said, being nice and being appreciated as being nice, it doesn't, it's not a bad thing. And I agree with Dr. Amani. It's not Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, that you're outside, you're very, very free with your colleagues and everyone. As soon as you go into the classroom, you put on a mask and you're the strictest person ever, right? I think they see that. They see that you're the same person inside the class and outside the class. And that's important, I believe.
Yeah, totally. I like that strategy, first class. I'm going to do that next time, Kazi, to see what's the reaction. And they come prepared. They look up the professors on those social media things and they know what's happening more than we do, actually. So yeah, they come prepared to the classes. I agree. Right. Does anyone else have any comments or any questions?
I have.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead, Walid.
All right, let me bring my question. Okay, so my question to Dr. Amani, she mentioned something about having her students always doing teamwork. I wonder if she's if she's facing any challenges managing the teamwork, how she gets her students to work together with no or with minimum conflict, how she's managing that. Like, do your students always come to you to resolve conflicts, for example, making sure that everyone is doing like equal amount of work?
Yes, actually, this is another excellent question. As in the College of Engineering, as I mentioned before, we work in groups. We have to work in teams. This is the nature of our work. So we have, of course, these conflicts from time to time. But we need to sit down together and see where are the points of conflicts are. They must have an origin. They are coming from somewhere. So if you just tackle the origin of the problem, then the problem will be solved. Now, what if a student comes up and tells you, well, I don't like to work with this person. Fine. This is real life situation right now. We do not always have to like the people that in the workplace, right? But at the end of the day, we have to care about facts. We need the work to be done. So this is part of the learning process, is how to put your feelings aside and be subjective. And actually, the feeling side, this is also something that we face as teachers by the time of students' evaluation as well. So I heard this from a previous colleague and a previous award winner in the College of Engineering, and I learned this from him. He said, don't look at the students' comments in a defensive way. Always put your feelings aside and evaluate things subjectively. So this is what we need to do, and this is the message that we need to convey to our students, no matter what. So yes, part of the life experience is to have these conflicts, but also part of the life experience is to overcome these conflicts and get the work done.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the time, and I know that Dr. Amani needs to leave as well.
Yes, unfortunately, I have to leave to another long meeting. So thank you. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
And thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much, Amani and Ilker and Kazi and me, obviously, for moderating this session. Just to add a little bit to what Amani said. So I guess we understand the difficulty in handling students. So because of that, CITL actually we have developed a group contract for the group project. So if any of you are having any difficulty in managing your students, please feel free to contact us and we can share with you the group rubric and contract as well. So in a way that students understand from day one when you work in the group, these are the rules that they have to follow and they can add to the rules as well. So yeah, so we think that's going to be very, very helpful. So we're testing that. I'm testing that in my class as well. So far it works wonderful. Again, looking at the time, I think
I want to see that.
Oh yes, please. I'm more than happy to share that. We have a lot of wonderful things that we need to share here.
You always get the students who come and tell you, "Oh, I don't want to work with her or him because whatever reason." And I totally agree. You need to let them go through the experience because
yes, I know. Yeah, I mean, it's just. That is why, because of the need, so we decided to create this group contract, which is very important, I suppose. So yes, we will be sharing that because we're testing everything out this semester to make sure that it works fine, so that maybe in the fall, we can just send it out to everybody and you guys can try and let us know. Any last word from you, May, to wrap it up?
We wanted to talk about student feedback. We want to talk more about students' feedback. This needs a whole session, I think.
Yes, definitely we need to do that. Maybe we can have, after Ramadan, we can have a coffee session where we talk about this, which is going to be nice.
Yeah.
We need to do this more often. I mean, we need to get people from other schools and colleges to share. Let's say, whatever that Kazi and Ilker is doing is just amazing. Nobody knows whatever you guys are doing because we never speak. We don't talk to one another. I mean, Ilker and me, we are in the same building, but we hardly speak to one another in a way. So this is kind of nice, having a conversation and start sharing.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming. We really enjoyed that. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, everybody. I mean, especially the panelists and the moderator. Really appreciate your time.